She wakes up at 4:38 in the morning, frantic because her boyfriend never came home. By 6, she finds him frozen in the snow outside a fellow cop's house. Witnesses say she screamed, "I hit him," over and over, but she insists she only asked, "Could I have hit him?" 3 years later, after 2 trials and evidence of a deeply corrupted police investigation, a jury delivers a verdict that changed everything. The question isn't just whether Karen Reed killed John O'Keefe, it's whether powerful people conspired to destroy her life to hide their own crimes. Thanks for clicking on this video. We're just a group of friends with regular 9-to-5s, but these stories haunt us enough to spend our nights bringing them to you. We don't ask for much, just your subscription, a like, and drop a comment telling us where you're watching from, because we would like to know which country most of our viewers are watching from. That's what keeps us digging through case files at midnight instead of sleeping. Thank you for believing in what we're doing. Every single one of you makes this possible. January 28th, 2002 started like many winter nights in the Boston suburbs. Karen Reed, a 41-year-old financial analyst and adjunct professor, met her boyfriend John O'Keefe at a local bar. O'Keefe was a 46-year-old Boston Police Department veteran who had raised his niece and nephew after their parents died. The couple had been together for about 2 years, rekindling a relationship that first began back in 2004. They went to C.F. McCarthy's around 9 that evening, then moved across the street to the Waterfall Bar and Grill just before 11. There, they met up with friends including Brian Albert, a fellow Boston police officer, and his wife, Nicole. As the bar closed, the group received an invitation to continue the party at the Albert home on Fairview Road, where their son was celebrating his 23rd birthday. Security footage captured Reed and O'Keefe leaving the waterfall together at 12:11 in the morning. Other party attendees included Jennifer McCabe, Nicole Albert's sister, her husband Matthew, and Brian Higgins, an agent with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. Red drove O'Keefe in her Lexus SUV toward the Albert house, though she was unfamiliar with the neighborhood. Jennifer McCabe called O'Keefe at 12:14 to give directions. According to Reed, they arrived outside the house around 12:24, but she felt uncomfortable going inside. She later claimed she watched O'Keefe enter the home, planning to check if the couple was welcome before she joined. But Brian Albert Sr., Nicole Albert, and everyone inside the house would later testify they never saw O'Keefe enter that night, not once. Between 12:33 and 12:36, Reed tried calling O'Keefe 7 times from the car, and there was no answer. She drove to O'Keefe's house, connecting to the Wi-Fi at 12:36. Then came a series of increasingly frantic and angry voicemails. At 12:37, she stated in one message, "John, I hate you." At 12:59, "John, I'm here with the kids. Nobody knows where you are. You pervert." By 1:17, her voice carried raw desperation. "You're using me right now. You're with another girl. You're a loser." Her last call attempt came at 1:18, before she fell asleep next to O'Keefe's niece. Meanwhile, O'Keefe's phone received 3 unread messages from Jennifer McCabe between 12:40 and 12:45, asking where he was. His phone's battery temperature dropped steadily through the night, from 72 degrees at 12:37 to 43 degrees by 6 in the morning, telling a silent story of a body exposed to frigid winter air. At 4:38, Reed woke and resumed calling O'Keefe. By 4:53, panic had fully set in, so she called Jennifer McCabe asking for help finding him. At 5, she called Carrie Roberts, a friend of O'Keefe's. Roberts later testified that Reed initially screamed, "John is dead, Carrie," before hanging up and calling back to explain she feared he might have been hit by a snowplow. Just after 5 in the morning, Reed's home security camera captured something crucial. The footage shows her backing out of O'Keefe's garage in her Lexus, visibly bumping his parked Chevrolet Traverse. The cars made contact, and his vehicle moved slightly. At precisely the same moment, Jennifer McCabe placed a 38-second call to her sister, Nicole Albert, though Jennifer would later deny speaking to Nicole that morning. Around 6, Reed arrived at 34 Fairview Road with McCabe and Roberts. That's when Red spotted something in the snow near the flagpole, a dark shape that shouldn't have been there. It was John O'Keefe's body, lying motionless in the front yard. Emergency responders arrived quickly, and multiple witnesses, including 2 paramedics and Jennifer McCabe, reported that Red repeatedly said, I hit him, at the scene. But Reed would later insist she only asked, could I have hit him? Did I hit him? The autopsy 2 days later determined O'Keefe died from blunt impact injuries to the head and hypothermia. Police found broken cocktail glass pieces and fragments of a taillight at the scene. A forensic toxicologist estimated Reed's blood alcohol content would have been between 0.13 and 0.29 around 12:45 that morning, well above the legal limit. On February 2nd, 2022, Red appeared in court for the first time, pleading not guilty to manslaughter, motor vehicle homicide, and leaving the scene. 4 months later, a grand jury upgraded the charges to second-degree murder, manslaughter, while operating under the influence, and leaving the scene of personal injury and death. She posted $100,000 bail and was released. What happened next would split the case wide open. In May 2023, Red's defense attorneys Alan Jackson and David Yannetti made a stunning allegation during a pretrial hearing. They claimed O'Keefe was actually beaten inside Brian Albert's home during a fight, possibly attacked by Albert's dog based on wounds to O'Keefe's arms. According to the defense, his body was then dumped outside to make it look like Red hit him with her car. Jackson told the court, "This is not just fishing. We've got a fish on the hook. We just need the court to help us reel it in." The prosecution fired back immediately, with Assistant District Attorney Adam Lally insisting there was no evidence O'Keefe was beaten and left for dead. But the defense wasn't finished. On May 24th, they laid out what they called a massive cover-up by law enforcement. "Certainly, the Massachusetts State Police is involved," Jackson declared. "There are people that were in that house that are involved. Brian Albert is involved. Jennifer McCabe is involved. Every single one of them." Following that dramatic hearing, Reed spoke to reporters for the first time on the courthouse steps. "We know who did it," she said, her voice breaking. "I tried to save his life. I was covered in his blood. I was the only one trying to save his life." The case started attracting unusual attention from an unexpected source. Aidan Kearney, a local blogger operating under the name Turtle Boy, began covering the story extensively on his website with a series called Canton Cover-Up. Kearney didn't just write about the case. He filmed himself confronting witnesses and posted the videos on YouTube. His coverage brought the case from relative obscurity to national prominence, but it also brought serious consequences. In October 2023, authorities arrested Kearney on witness intimidation charges. His defense attorney argued he was simply exercising his First Amendment rights. As the first trial approached in early 2024, more disturbing details emerged. Reed's attorneys filed documents showing that federal crash reconstruction experts had concluded the damage to Reed's car was inconsistent with hitting a person. The car didn't hit him, and he wasn't hit by the car, Jackson told the court. Then came an even more shocking revelation. Massachusetts State Police announced they had opened an internal investigation into Trooper Michael Proctor, the lead investigator in the case. Defense attorneys revealed that Proctor had hidden personal connections to people involved in the case. Text messages showed he had called Reed a whack job and sent messages saying, "Hopefully she kills herself," while supposedly conducting an impartial investigation. Just 16 hours into the investigation, before O'Keefe's autopsy was even performed, Proctor told friends in a group chat they won't be able to prove Red hit O'Keefe with her car, but all the powers that be want answers as sharp as possible. The first trial began on April 16, 2024. Prosecutor Adam Lally and defense attorney Alan Jackson presented radically different versions of what happened that night. The prosecution argued Reed intentionally ran O'Keefe over after heavy drinking, pointing to broken taillight pieces found at the scene, angry voicemails she left him, and multiple witnesses who heard her say, "I hit him," that morning. If you think police misconduct should never go unpunished, prove it by liking this video and leaving a comment. Sharing this story means you're standing up to a system that protects its own instead of seeking truth. Silence in the face of corruption makes you complicit. Don't let them sweep this under the rug. Subscribe so you never miss when we expose similar cases like this one. because accountability only happens when people like you refuse to look away. The defense painted a completely different picture. They argued Reed was being framed as part of a law enforcement cover-up to protect the real perpetrators. They suggested O'Keefe was beaten inside the Albert home and left outside to die in the snow. The defense exposed how Trooper Proctor's close relationships with the Albert family created massive conflicts of interest that compromised the entire investigation. During testimony, jurors saw evidence of shocking investigative failures. Police collected evidence using solo cups and stop-and-shop grocery bags instead of proper materials. Proctor admitted he hadn't initially disclosed his personal relationships with certain witnesses. The defense showed Reed's taillight appeared intact in footage taken after midnight on January 29th. Contradicting prosecution claims, it was already broken. They even showed the mirrored video of Reed's SUV at the Canton Police Department, suggesting investigators manipulated evidence. Perhaps most damaging to the prosecution was testimony about a Google search. Both sides agreed someone searched "how long to die in cold" the morning O'Keefe died, but they disagreed on when. Prosecutors claimed Jennifer McCabe made the search at 6:23 and 6:24, after O'Keefe's body was found. The defense presented a federal forensic expert who determined the search happened at 2:27 in the morning, hours before anyone reported finding the body. Medical experts testified that O'Keefe's injuries didn't match what you'd expect from being hit by a car. 2 accident reconstruction experts obtained by the FBI, plus the Commonwealth's own medical examiner, confirmed the injuries were inconsistent with a vehicle collision. Defense attorneys also pointed to suspicious behavior by Brian Albert, who sold his house and got rid of his dog shortly after the incident. The trial stretched on for 8 weeks, with 68 witnesses. Closing arguments came on June 25, 2024, and jury deliberation began immediately. After 25 hours of deliberation, the jury sent a note to Judge Beverly Cannonay on July 1st. They were deadlocked, citing fundamental differences in their beliefs. Cannon declared a mistrial, but hours after the mistrial, something extraordinary happened. Multiple jurors reached out to Reed's defense team with a shocking claim. The jury had unanimously agreed Red was not guilty of second-degree murder and leaving the scene, but felt deadlocked on the third charge. They simply didn't know how to communicate this to the judge. Reed's attorneys immediately filed a motion to dismiss those 2 charges based on double jeopardy, arguing she'd already been acquitted of them. Judge Cannonay denied the motion. The appeals went all the way to the Supreme Court. Every court denied the request. While legal battles raged, consequences mounted for those involved in the investigation. The same day as the mistrial, Massachusetts State Police announced Trooper Michael Proctor had been relieved of duty. 8 days later, he was suspended without pay following a duty hearing. Canton Police Officer Kevin Albert, brother of Brian Albert, was placed on leave related to Proctor's testimony. Another investigator, Sergeant Yuri Buchanek, forfeited 5 vacation days following an internal affairs investigation for being in group chats where Proctor sent inappropriate messages. Red's second trial began on April 1st, 2025. Special Prosecutor Hank Brennan, known for defending notorious mobster Whitey Bulger, led the prosecution this time. Red filed an emergency request to the Supreme Court to delay proceedings and dismiss 2 charges on double jeopardy grounds. Both requests were denied, and the trial moved forward with 3 major charges: second-degree murder, manslaughter while operating under the influence, and leaving the scene of a collision resulting in death. The second trial examined much of the same evidence as the first, with some notable differences. Red never took the stand, though prosecutors regularly played video clips from interviews she'd given since the first trial. The case had exploded into national prominence by this point, fueled by extensive media coverage and an HBO docuseries. Protests erupted outside the courthouse daily, with Reed's supporters wearing pink and cheering for her, while O'Keefe's family and supporters gathered on the opposite side. Dozens of witnesses testified again. This includes law enforcement officers, forensic experts, and O'Keefe's loved ones, including his mother, Peggy, who spoke publicly for the first time since her son's death. The trial featured heated exchanges over DNA evidence. taillight damage analysis, and conflicting expert opinions about how O'Keefe actually died. Defense motions for mistrial were filed and denied. Arguments grew increasingly contentious as both sides fought for their version of the truth. On June 13, 2025, after all testimony concluded and closing arguments finished, jury deliberations began. 4 days later, on June 18th, the jury reached their verdict. In their fourth day of deliberations, jurors acquitted Karen Reed of second-degree murder, manslaughter while operating under the influence, and leaving the scene of an accident resulting in death. She was convicted only of driving under the influence of alcohol, a misdemeanor. As the verdict was read, a loud cheer erupted inside the courtroom from the crowd gathered outside. Red hugged her attorneys and cried. Judge Cannone sentenced her to 1 year probation, the standard sentence for a first-time DUI offense. Outside the courthouse, hundreds of supporters chanted, "Free Karen Reed," and made "I love you" signs in American Sign Language. Red greeted them with flowers. It was her 45th birthday. Several key prosecution witnesses who were friends with the O'Keefe family issued a statement calling the verdict a devastating miscarriage of justice. The O'Keefe family released their own statement, expressing profound grief and vowing to continue seeking justice for John. But for Karen Reed and her supporters, the verdict represented vindication after 3.5 years of being accused of murder. Yet the legal battles were far from over. The O'Keefe family had filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Red back in August 2024, accusing her of killing John and to Canton Bars of overserving her alcohol. Judge William White ordered the civil case stayed until the criminal proceedings concluded, protecting Reed's Fifth Amendment rights. With the criminal trial over, that civil lawsuit could now move forward. If corrupt investigations make you angry, channel that anger into a positive action by liking this video, sharing it everywhere, and subscribing to this channel. Staying silent when you see injustice means you're okay with evil people getting away with it. Don't let them. Comment your thoughts below, because every voice raised against corruption matters. Your engagement isn't just supporting this channel, it's demanding accountability from a system that desperately needs it. Then on November 17th, 2025, Karen Reed filed her own explosive lawsuit. She sued the investigators in her case and the group of people who were at the Albert House the night O'Keefe died, alleging they conspired to frame her for murder. The lawsuit named Brian and Nicole Albert, Jennifer and Matthew McCabe, Brian Higgins, and several Massachusetts state police officers, including Michael Proctor, Yuri Buchanek, and Brian Tully. According to the lawsuit, the defendants concocted a plan to cover up O'Keefe's true cause of death and frame Reed instead. The complaint alleges Jennifer McCabe searched Google for "how long to die in cold" at 2:27 that morning. Then the group moved O'Keefe's body outside to stage it as a car accident. It further accuses them of using their law enforcement connections to ensure they wouldn't be investigated. The lawsuit seeks damages for malicious prosecution, civil rights violations, and civil conspiracy. The named defendants fired back hard. On November 26th, their attorney James Tuxbury filed a notice removing the case from state court to federal court, arguing Reed's Fourth Amendment claims required federal jurisdiction. In their filing, the defendants called Reed's lawsuit a vengeful abuse of the judicial process and an ongoing and malicious attempt to evade responsibility for the death of John O'Keefe by smearing and defaming witnesses who participated in the prosecution of her. The Alberts, McCabes, and Higgins launched a crowdfunding campaign on GiveSendGo, stating they stayed silent, trusting the justice system to correct the record and protect the witnesses who cooperated in good faith. The campaign raised over $48,000 within days to help fund their legal defense. The case was assigned to federal judge Denise Casper, the same judge who sentenced notorious mobster Whitey Bulger. As of late November 2025, Reed also shuffled her civil defense team for the O'Keefe wrongful death lawsuit, replacing her attorneys from Mellick and Porter with new lawyers from Tang and Maravellis. The legal warfare shows no signs of ending anytime soon, with both civil cases expected to drag on for months or years. The fallout from the case continues spreading through law enforcement. On March 19, 2025, Massachusetts State Police fired Michael Proctor after a trial board found him guilty of sending derogatory messages about a suspect, sharing sensitive investigative information with non-law enforcement personnel, unsatisfactory performance, and violating policies on alcohol consumption. Sergeant Yuri Buchanek was transferred to an administrative role. Canton Police Sergeant Sean Good was placed on administrative leave in November 2025 amid misconduct allegations, though officials didn't specify if it related to the Reed case. The case has torn apart the Canton community. Families have feuded, friendships have ended, and residents have taken sides in an increasingly bitter divide. Some believe Karen Reed is an innocent woman who was framed by corrupt police protecting their own. Others believe she killed John O'Keefe in a drunken rage and manipulated public opinion to escape justice. 3 years after John O'Keefe's death, nobody can agree on what actually happened that January night. If you believe the truth will surely prevail in this case, prove it right now. Like this video, share it with everyone you know, and subscribe to this channel. Ignoring cases like this means you're comfortable with corruption winning. Don't be comfortable with that. Drop a comment telling me whether you think Karen Reed was framed or guilty, because these discussions matter. Your engagement fights back against a system that would rather you stay quiet and forget. Don't let them succeed. Multiple documentaries and media projects have emerged from the case. Netflix announced a 3-part documentary in July 2024. ABC's 2020, NBC's Dateline, and Investigation Discovery all produced episodes examining the case. A podcast series called 34 Fairview Road explored every detail. In August 2025, Amazon Prime Video and Warner Brothers announced a limited series with Elizabeth Banks playing Karen Reed and David E. Kelly serving as executive producer. The case has even connected to other controversial investigations. Brian Walsh's lawyer, the man accused of murdering his wife Anna Walsh in Cohasset, said he would file motions suggesting Proctor's bias played a role in his client's case. Reed's attorneys sought documents related to the Sandra Birchmore case, where a Stoughton woman's death was initially ruled suicide before federal investigators alleged she was murdered by a police detective who had groomed and sexually abused her since she was 15. Multiple officers worked both cases, raising questions about a pattern of misconduct. 3 years after John O'Keefe died in the snow outside 34 Fairview Road, the fundamental question remains unanswered. Was Karen Reed a grieving girlfriend who made terrible choices that night and accidentally killed the man she loved? Or was she an innocent woman, caught in an elaborate conspiracy by corrupt police officers, protecting a killer in their ranks? The jury in her criminal trial answered one version of that question. They found her not guilty of murder and manslaughter, convicting her only of drunk driving. But 2 civil lawsuits now promise to rehash every detail again in a different legal arena. The O'Keefe family seeks justice for John through their wrongful death claim. Karen Reed seeks vindication through her lawsuit, alleging she was framed. What we know for certain is this: a devoted father figure who raised his dead siblings' children is gone. An entire police investigation has been exposed as deeply flawed at best and criminally corrupt at worst. A community has been traumatized by division and distrust. Countless lives have been forever affected by whatever really happened in those early morning hours. John O'Keefe's family released a statement on the 3rd anniversary of his death in January 2025. It has been 3 years since Johnny was senselessly taken from us. The void in our lives grows with each passing day, week, month, and year. His absence is profound, and we will continue to seek justice for him. He is always in our hearts. Karen Reed maintains she is innocent, that she loved John O'Keefe, and that she was framed by a corrupt system more interested in protecting its own than finding the truth. The witnesses she's accused of conspiracy insist they did nothing wrong, and that she's trying to evade responsibility for killing the man they considered a friend. In the end, the Karen Reed case forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about justice, truth, and power. Can we trust law enforcement to investigate their own? How do we find truth when evidence is disputed and witnesses contradict each other? What happens when a community's faith in their institutions crumbles? The legal system gave its answer on June 18, 2025. But whether that answer represents justice or a miscarriage of it depends entirely on who you believe about what happened in the snow that January night in Canton, Massachusetts. The truth may be out there somewhere, hidden beneath the snow, the accusations, and the long years of legal warfare. Or perhaps the truth is exactly what the jury decided, that reasonable doubt exists about what really happened, that the investigation was too compromised to trust, and that Karen Reed deserves to walk free. What remains undisputed is that John O'Keefe is dead. The kids he looked after will grow up without the uncle who became their father.
I want to thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you're going to love what's coming next. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell for instant updates on our latest videos. See you in the next one.